Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Business podcast and live stream. I'm Ian Cantle, and I'm joined by Dan, Jen, Ken, and Paul. And nobody likes stale bread. What a way to start a podcast. There's Paul. Yeah. I don't know which way to point. Nobody likes stale bread. Nobody likes a stale website. Not your prospects, not your customers, and definitely not Google. Now, you may be asking yourself, what makes a website stale? Why does it matter? And how can I freshen up my website so it's gooey and yummy inside? So let's get fresh today and jump into this important topic. So Jen, before we jump into what makes a website stale, let me ask you, why is it important not to have a stale website?
Why is it important? Well, I'm just still laughing at all your adjectives. Well, I mean, it's important because you want to look like you are still in business and can serve and can help your customers. So if your website is stale, that gives the impression that perhaps you're no longer in business anymore, or you're not doing, the top-notch job that you could. So some of the factors that would lead to, and I just want to be really clear that having a stale website does not equate to a simple website, because not every single company needs, a 50 or 100 page website, right? So it can be a very simple, up-to-date website, and that would be just fine. So some of the things with it being stale, it could be, number one, if someone is coming to your website and it is not HTTPS, so you get the warning sign right away, right? So that would be a real deterrent for sure. The other thing could be, and probably more so now, is someone's looking up your website on mobile and it's not rendering properly. That would be, I would say those are the two things. And no matter if you have a very large website, very simple website, it's got to show up on mobile, and it's got to be secure, whether or not you're selling any kind of e-commerce products off of your website. And it's just important because it's one of the first touch points of building trust with your potential client.
That's awesome. Thanks for explaining that, Jen. And Ken, talk to me a bit more about factors that make a website stale or out of date or less than stellar, and why the factors. Start with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jen kind of mentioned a couple. It's if you go down to the footer and you see that the copyright is 5 years old. If you look at the website and it looks like it's a flyer that's turned on its side that has been printed and superimposed on the website, it's stale. I don't want people to think that stale means ugly or not attractive. We're not talking about the beauty of a website. I'll take a website that converts every day, all day long, over the most beautiful website, because that's a website that's been constructed and obviously resonates and communicates with clients. And it's, but at the same time, you do need, if you've got pictures that look like they were taken in, the last decade, or we're not too far off that decade, but 10 years or 15 years ago, stuff like that. It's important too, because you want to constantly add content to your website if search rankings is important for you. If you're just looking for a professional looking website, you can get by with basically the same 5-page website from one year to the next, but you should still do a little bit to freshen it up, to make it look contemporary. Most people in this day and age have gone to enough websites to where they can look and they can tell if people are paying attention to their business, and if they give a damn about their website. And if they don't give a damn about their website, what does that say about the way that they may treat their customers? And I don't think you want to go there, so, in terms of staleness, we may talk about this more, but, it really, my biggest concern would be from an SEO perspective, as well as just making sure that it looks like a modern contemporary website that works on mobile, that has the HTTPS, all of the things that we know Google are telling us it's important, in this day and age.
Right. Those are good points, and both you and Jen touched on it, that this is whereas a brochure or something printed used to be kind of the first touch point a lot of customers used to see of a business, a small local business. Now it's the website, right? And if the website doesn't look like and speak like it should, then absolutely it's creating a bad first impression. Paul, we've touched on some of the kind of front end things, like the visual stuff that people see and some of the SEO and stuff like that. But what are some of the back end elements of a website that have changed over time, that can affect your business, and that people should be paying attention to, and that need to be kind of kept on the forefront of what's being done on a website over time?
Yeah, that is a really good point, because when the infamous Google bot crawls your website, it's not looking at the front end. It's looking at things like structured data. We've touched on SSL, which is HTTPS, and Google claims it's a ranking factor, but they don't explain why websites without HTTPS sometimes outrank websites with them. And there can be a lot of reasons for that, but HTTPS is necessary. Schema, which helps Google understand what your website is about, is important. Google scans your website intermittently for malware, and if it detects malware on your website, it will remove them. It'll remove it from the search engine results. So,
well, not only that, it throws up a big red warning flag too, right?
Yes, it does. But if they remove your website from the search results, it doesn't matter whether it throws up a warning. But it's all those underlying things that you don't see when you look at a website. I think a lot of times business owners, they're busy and it's not their job to know this stuff. And they'll look at a website, they'll say, well, it looks good, but they don't understand that it's these underlying things on the back end that no one sees when they look at a website. But when the Google bot crawls your website, it does see these things, and it will affect your ranking.
Yep.
Hey,
Yep.
Paul, you didn't mention anything about keeping plugins or the themes up to date, stuff like that. I mean, and that's specific to WordPress, but depending on what your website platform is built with, it's incredibly important to keep that stuff up to date, because that's the single biggest source of vulnerabilities in terms of people being able to hack websites, right?
Yeah, well, to me, that all goes under the security umbrella. Like you said, no matter what your platform is, whether it's WordPress or Joomla or whatever, whether it's plugins or modules, the platform and everything on the back end that makes the website work needs to be kept up to date. So to me, that's all under security.
One of the you were talking a bit about Google and how it's looking at the back end of stuff. Google's, as I know, Paul, Google's started just in the past few months to really dig into what they call the Core Web Vitals, and these are front end or front end affecting things about the usability of a website. Maybe you can talk a little bit about. You don't go into great detail because that might be too deep for this discussion, but what does that mean to people, and why does it affect their websites? And they need to make sure that these things are looked at.
Yeah, things like first content paint, cumulative layout shift. It's how the website displays it, time to first byte, time to first interaction. It's how long does it take for that website to reach a point where, and I'm sure we've all seen it, where you go to a website and things start moving around. And that's called content shift. And that is all in how the website is coded on the back end. Time to first content paint. How long does it take for the website to display? How long before someone can actually interact with the website? Does it take 5 seconds before they can click on something and fill out a form? And these things all matter to Google. So yes, you see it on the front end, but it still goes back to how it's designed. So
Right.
you might see that on the front end, but it's a technical thing in how that's fixed.
Right. And the interesting thing about it is that the reason Google's zoning in on these elements now, these Core Web Vitals, is because it actually affects how relevant the results are that they're sending people to, because people do care about how fast a page loads. People do care about these shifts on the page because it affects the usability. So these are really important things, and they affect how people are going to get attracted to your website.
Yeah, the Core Web Vitals are really one component of what Google calls UX, user experience. So they're looking at user experience, and the Core Web Vitals is one component of that. Yes, Google is really focusing on user experience, and that's a whole. Core Web Vitals has become the poster child for that, but there's a whole larger issue within user experience.
Awesome. And that may be a whole other topic we want to look at as a team sometime, because I know it can get super technical. Dan, websites as a whole evolve over time, not just the look and the feel. What looked good, mullets look good at one point, although they're coming back, so we can't use that as an example. But what resonated 4 years ago no longer resonates today with people, because behavior changes, people's expectations change. Even the customer journey has evolved as well. Can you share how websites have changed to help customers through that buyer's journey?
Sure. Well, this is going to sound bad because I love the buyer's journey and all that goes with it. But I think, I respect it because it's definitely very valuable in your thinking of how you plan your website. But when I'm thinking about, I'll use myself because I'm going through a website redesign right now. And my process is definitely not to think about some formula where I'm the hero or whatever, and then do 12 different steps of how I can, go through telling my story. And it's not about that to me. It's about, when I'm asked, honestly, when I go into a networking setting, my thing is, what are these people asking me about? What questions do they always come back to? Well, they always come back to, can I see examples of your work? So how prominent and how easy is it for me to show them examples of my work? How easy is it for them? They always ask for references. Well, how easy can I make it for them to see the reviews? I'm lucky to say that I have a lot of good ones, but it's not going to do any good if they can't find them. So can I show that? Where can I show that on my website? I don't do this, but I can understand why some people might have a chat bot or something like that. I think you brought that up once in another show, Ian, and why some people do that. Because maybe they want answers right now, or maybe they want to schedule a meeting right now and do that faster. In my mind, the website is there for one thing first and foremost, and that is to get you business. And that has to be the thing. Nothing is going to replace you as a human being talking to another human being. The website has to be salesperson number 1A. So that once you're found and they're there, they can be gone in 30 seconds. It's not going to matter what hero's journey and what the format is. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to care about that stuff. They're only going to care about, can I get the answer that I came here for right now? And is that navigation easy for me to do? They're not going to go through, well, now I know them and I like them and I trust them. Nobody thinks like that. So instead, think about what are the top 5 questions that you always get. as a business. And I think what's evolved is that people thought, well, I should definitely talk about my full suite of services and how long we've been around since 1955. And we have all of these other things. All that crap is about you. It's not helping them. And they are coming for it. People are, I put this in the nicest phrase, are selfish, but for a reason. They want to get answers to their problem right now. And those are the things that your website must do in the first, not even 30 seconds, really, the first 15 seconds probably. And that's probably the top half of the homepage that you got to do. So I think about that and how websites have to evolve in that way. Not to have, even before you think of a structure, what are the things that you really, really are going to be answering and keep very easy for them to do? Because if it takes 2 clicks, they're gone. Like, they're never going to do more than 1 click to find what they need as far as an answer to their question. And that's where I think the role of website as business developer is so important.
And what's interesting too about what you said, Dan, is you were talking about kind of a different philosophy of what's pretty common out there of how to build and structure a website. The interesting thing is that as you spoke, I actually saw the continuity of StoryBrand in there, the actual buyer's journey in there, because what you're doing is you're putting yourself in the mind of the buyer and you're trying to guide them through the process and answer their questions. And that is exactly what those things do. So I think there's really good affinity and continuity between what you're saying and those other things as well.
Yeah, I mean, that may be. That may be. I don't. How do I say this? I don't think of I don't even think of our own framework sometimes when I'm planning that stuff out. I try to take myself out of it, if that makes sense. I try to not come with my own presupposed formulas or frameworks. Those things will have their time in this process. But the first thing that I think of is, if I was this person, like if I needed a lawyer, let's say, and you just were injured in an accident and you had a very specific type of injury, the one thing that you would not want to do is, well, let me understand a little bit of their breadth of services and how I just want to know what the process is so I can get things going. And so I think that's the sort of urgency that we have now. Probably in the age of COVID, we have more urgency and more impatience than we have ever seen in our lives. Like, if we thought that people were impatient before, it's probably more so now. If you can't answer my question within 5 seconds and 1 click, then I'm never going to come back. And so I think those elements of those other things are there. You're right, they're there. But I think you got to start with them. Take yourself out of it. If you were them and you had that question and things were burning questions, or they were in research mode, what would you want to see answered within 1 click, within 30 seconds?
And I think that is the premises of those structures. It's always putting the customer in the driver's seat. And that's why consultants are usually required, because the business owner has a hard time actually getting into the mindset of their clients.
Yeah. I think that's, what I tend to think about is once they're in the door, they're walking around the house a little bit. Then I tend to think a little bit more about, okay, now that they're here, and hopefully now that I've at least done a preliminary answer of their question, then maybe they want to get to know me a little bit better about some other facets of what I do and things like that. But it's them first. It's okay. The guy's bleeding. You got to put the Band-Aid on. Like, you can't start telling stories when they're bleeding. So, okay, let me help you with what this is. Let me put your mind at ease, and let me position you as someone on your short list. Have I done that? Cool. Now that you're not bleeding, now that we don't have to take you to the hospital, let me have a conversation about how we might be a long-term solution.
That's awesome, and I think we all agree to that. I think it's all about
Yeah.
putting the customers you're trying to attract in that center position, in the hero position, as some people would say. Just
Yeah. One thing, Dan,
go ahead, Ken.
I don't think you really talked about much is really, I'm amazed at how often websites don't ask people to do something and don't make it clear what you want them to do. It could be a button, schedule a consultation. Feel free to. You should be repeating that several times, whatever your main call to action is, on any given page. And make it easy for somebody to understand how they can do business with you. That's a key element of StoryBrand that I think is really important. Is here's how it works. You schedule a consultation. We have a conversation to see if we're the right fit. Now you're wildly successful, or whatever it is. But you're going to have, if you describe that process, you're painting a picture to help people go from their before state to what they could be in the after state. And that's ultimately marketing. And I think that element especially on a homepage or a landing page, you're driving people for conversion purposes, is really important.
I mean, and that may be, I'm just not familiar with their process, but I think what the problem that I see with a lot of stuff out there, and I don't really know if this is part of a format or it seems to be a thing. The trend I tend to see in design with landing pages is, let's make sure we make it a landing page that is longer than the Old Testament. And let's not put the price in there. We wouldn't want to do that because we know that's what they're searching for. So, okay, we're telling stories long and here's some testimonials. Show me the damn price. Like, just show me the price. If it's good, I'll keep going. And it's like, this is the kind of mindset that we have to have, is like, why do you think people are here? Why do we not think that they're going to ask about the price? They're going to ask about the price. And you burying it in a lot of story isn't going to change the fact that they're just going to be like, you know what? I can't find what this thing's going to cost. I'm excited, but if I don't know where it is, I'm out of here. And so it's that kind of nice blend of, yes, tell your story, but don't keep the rabid dog from, getting what they need. They want certain answers that they must have right now. And I think that is the thing that I'm seeing more than anything else is, let's have a long story, and let's make sure that we aren't answering any questions. But let's bury that price more than anything. We don't want to talk about that until much later.
Yeah, I agree about your point about not showing the price. I can't tell you how many websites I've left because that's what I want to know. What's this going to cost? And if you can't tell me that, I'm gone. I'll go somewhere else. And, to Ken's point about the calls to action, go look at Neil Patel's website. You can't scroll 5 lines without seeing a call to action.
Right.
Yeah.
He's good at that, isn't he? Yeah.
Well, and, I'm a big fan of, I love StoryBrand. I love the framework. I'm biased because I've been a certified guide. I'm now, in the Business Made Simple program, which again, StoryBrand and all that kind of fits into. But a couple of elements that I really love is, one is keep the top navigation clean. Don't clutter it, because that's where your action is going to happen on your website. People know to naturally look for what they're looking for and how to take steps to resolve their problem by going into the upper right-hand corner of your website. So preserve that space, value it, cherish it, because it's your conversion area. And then in the footer, add a ton of information. It's okay to have a long footer with a lot of links, because as you said, Dan, I agree with you and Paul wholeheartedly. When I'm ready to buy, or I've got a problem and I need to be looking for a solution, I want to be able to go find that price right away. So put your pricing link in your footer, if it's not on the page, if it doesn't fit to be on the page, but be prepared to have most of your navigation in the footer. I mean, that's the style that's working right now for us and for our clients. And keep the top pure and focused on conversion.
And I think one thing I would add, to your original question, Ian, is that people tend to look at these things as like it's going to sell for me, and I don't think it's going to sell for you. Like, I don't tell people like this website's going to, you just sit back and relax while the customers pour in. Not in a service-based world, it isn't. Like, I think you got to look at this thing as it is an amazing visual aid, and that's minimizing it, but it is an amazing thing that can really solidify your position, and in a way that absolutely puts you above everybody else. But you still got to close them, and the website's not going to close them for you. Like, that's not going to get it done. It will put you in an amazing position to have a more successful consultation. Absolutely. But you have to be the person that does that, not your website. Your website will not do that.
I just want to clarify something.
The website can cost you the opportunity to have that closed.
Yeah. So like if you are looking at your site in that way as a real partner in your success, rather than the thing that you put your feet up on the desk and wait for things to happen with, then you're going to be okay. You're going to be more than okay. But that's how I look at it, is no matter how many bells and whistles and things I do to a site, it's going to be my best sales partner, but it won't be my salesperson.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I want to make sure that we're covering off all our bases, because we are the marketing guides for small business, and small businesses aren't just service based; they're product based. It could be a pizza joint, it could be a mechanic, and so I want to clarify a couple points. First, about story brand.
Right.
The story is not about you. The story is about bringing your customer into their own story. That's what that whole premise is about. So I just want to clarify that for the listeners. And I would highly recommend that if they want to learn more about that, check it out. It's brilliant. The second thing I wanted to talk about was price, because I actually disagree with you guys. I think in some circumstances, you absolutely need the price. I'm buying a pizza, I need to know something else. But in a lot of businesses, you never want to put price, because that is not what you want them to differentiate you on. You never want them to, if customers or people do not know what your difference is from your competitors, who they are looking at as well, they will opt for price because they have nothing else to hang their hat on. So I think that's really important, that we can't kind of paint every business that's listening to this with the same brush. So I thought that was important.
You make a great point. I mean, that's true. I think one way to sort of do the best of both worlds, the way we do it, for what it's worth here, and I think at least one of you do, is on our intake form. We have sort of some choices, where what's your budget? It's this range, this range, this range, and so on. 5 different ranges. But you're not going to be able to submit that form until you submit what your price is. So, we're not going to do work until we know what we're doing. So that's where, one way or another, you just need to know that. And I agree with you. I think the only area where it becomes an issue is the landing page when it's a one-off product. That's really where I think that's the difference. When you're talking about the whole of your business and a program, no question. But I'm seeing it on things where it's like, okay, this is one product with one thing that goes for it. It's not like we're talking about a lot of variables, and you got to just buy this thing, and that's what it is. So why beat around the bush and not tell me what that costs? That's the difference. But totally agree with you. I agree. Like, programs, give a range or ask them what their range is.
Yeah, I've even seen that with courses or webinars where, it's by a high authority person. You're interested. There's no price in the email. There's no price on the landing page. You actually have to click, sign me up, and then you see the price, and you're like, it's a little more than what I was thinking.
Yeah. And, Ian, you made a great point, which I think we can't stress enough. I mean, this is, we talk to, small businesses. We all work with different variety of businesses. Look, if you're a restaurant, you don't need a StoryBrand style website, unless you're maybe a high-end restaurant where it's more of an experience and something like that. If people are looking for, to buy a pizza, they want to know how to order. They need to be able to click that order button, or they need to know what your address is and how to get to your location. So you don't need to have them come into a story and, experience what transformative experience it's going to be by them eating your pizza.
But you do need the Pavlovian picture of the
Exactly.
pizza, so your mouth's watering and
Exactly. So
buy.
yeah. So I mean, there are certain businesses, that are more wired to be transactional based, where price is probably much more important. And I think that's the key point is, if it's purchasing a product, or if it's getting a service that's even transactional, like, going and getting your hair cut, or, getting a massage or something like that, I think price may be an much more important consideration to make it easy for people to find on that, for sure.
Yeah, I hate it when I have to agree with Ian.
Sorry.
But no, there are definitely like if you're a roofing contractor, there's a lot of variables. You can't just put a price on there.
Right.
You can put a range. You can explain those variables, but yeah, you can't say it's going to cost this much to replace a roof, because they go in there and start tearing shingles off and find out you have a bunch of rotted wood. Your price just went up.
And you can't even put in starting at, because now you're setting somebody's expectation, because all they remember is, oh yeah, it's $4,000.
Right.
No.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Forget the starting at, price.
and look, if you got a lot of different prices, let's say you're a service-based business and you've got 10 different types of services, all different ranges. Then you want to sort of, you remember when we were kids and we had those choose your own adventure books of, where you kind of like go in different directions based on where what you choose. And
if you didn't like the result, you would go back, right? And
yeah. So I was talking to a guy and I said, yeah, I'm really nervous about a program I'm launching and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know how to do it yet. And he goes, Dan, can you not worry about that and make it like a choose your own adventure? You're giving a lot of different options to people. You want them to self-select their bucket that they're comfortable with. And I never thought about it that way. Like I always thought about, well, I've got to direct them towards this product, blah, 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 blah. I never thought about having them self-select into one of 7 or 8 choices. And then I don't really care so much about showing the price at that point. It's just like, hey, which one you want? I got any of these, and I think any of these can work for you. Which one's it going to be? And so I found that extraordinarily freeing and liberating, which the website can absolutely do for you.
Thanks for bringing it back to the website, Dan. I was thinking, like, our conversation's gone as a whole. This isn't directed at you. I'm glad you brought it back. I was thinking it would be kind of interesting to do a round table where we just go around and each of us maybe share some of the most notable things that they've seen on websites that immediately, not even as a marketer necessarily, some of these can be like that, but just as a consumer or a business owner, you go to a website and you're like, holy cow, like these guys are not with the times. And maybe just, if you have an example like that, just say it. But if I can start with Jen, and then we'll go around and jump in when you want, guys.
How about that?
Sure.
Well, I'm not going to throw any company under the bus. Come on.
No, I wasn't. I didn't mean to name names, so don't name names, please.
I won't name names. Some of the telltale things for me is, okay, so what does it look like on mobile when I'm pulling it up? The other thing would be if I'm submitting either a question or and the submit button doesn't work and it's looking like it's something from 2002. I mean, I know, Ken, what you said about, design-wise doesn't matter, but there are some design themes, if you will, or ways websites used to be designed that would be a telltale giveaway. That
I'm not really saying design doesn't matter, but don't overly focus on the beauty of the website at the expense of the conversion of the website.
100%,
unless the beauty of the website is your conversion. Like if you're high fashion, it's got to be a beautiful, gorgeous website. If you sell cars, I mean, you've got to pull people in with these great, pictures and things like that. But just, I mean, and again, it's going to vary from one business to the next. But yeah, design is always important.
Sure.
It's just don't focus on the beauty and the aesthetics over the user
Making a sale. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Not only how does it look on mobile, to what Jen said, but does it load on mobile? I've gone to websites that you sit there for 3 days and it's still loading. So
Yeah.
that's a problem.
There would be another one too. I mean, it is detail oriented, but you submit either a question or you filled out the form, and there's nothing telling you that they got your response. So you're kind of like, did it work? Do I do this again?
Send 10 responses through. Keep clicking that button.
Yeah.
That's right. So
Yeah.
probably that. Yeah. Functionality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Little things like that.
Those
Sure.
are good ones.
So if you go,
Open internal links, that's bad.
yeah, if you go look at like their blog, and the last blog that was written was 5 years ago, or even 6 months ago, it immediately makes me wonder: are they really still operational? Or do they have the capacity to do the work that maybe they used to be able to do, but maybe they can't now because they can't keep their website up to date? I mean, it's just these subtle little clues that, I'm a big fan of. Your website should never give somebody a reason to not do business with you. So think about it partly that you should always look at your website from that perspective. Is there anything here that's costing me the opportunity to have somebody who could be my ideal client to do business with me? And if that's the case, you need to fix it. And there's a lot of, I think you're going to uncover a lot of stale things when you look at it and approach it from that perspective.
If you see a spinning logo at the top, that's usually a good sign it was built in 1990.
Well, if you see a slider, if you see
Sliders,
a slider
yeah.
where which is where the pictures move across the top of the home page or any page really, that's an indication to me that the website is probably old and out of date. And it's it had its time and place. It's not now.
Yeah.
Sliders are bad because you can't defer that JavaScript or else your slider doesn't work, and that slows down your website.
Yeah.
Broken images, hate seeing those right away. I'm like, they're not a good business, right? That's what I'm just kind of sharing what's in my mind when I see stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like they don't care about their website. They won't care about me as a customer.
If you go to the website and it looks like a postage stamp, not a good sign.
Unless they're selling stamps.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's Dan, you didn't jump in there. If you have something, please add it, or I'll ask another probing, insightful question.
Ask away.
All right. So as fellow business owners, but also marketers, what's your best advice for businesses that know they have a stale or outdated or broken website? How can they go about refreshing it now?
I think Ken kind of answered that. Was your last blog post 5 years ago? That's a clue.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple other things. I don't know if anybody else has gone through this in their years of doing websites, but we have where perhaps your previous website developer is vaporized and can't be found, so you can't get the updates or a new version. So you could go back to, if you were happy with the website, you could go back to your previous supplier and, say it's time for a refresh. What's happening? I think also too, as a buyer of this kind of technology, you don't have to know the ins and outs of it, but just know that just like cell phones and TVs and cars, every year at least, there's some kind of update that is happening with this piece of technology. So if you haven't refreshed your website in a good few years, do a shop around and see what the new features are, see what the new trends are, and really, I would say, think about what you want your website to do for your business, to help you. Most of us here subscribe to the thinking that your website is, your 24/7 salesperson. It is there to help and work for you. And I know when we're interviewing clients to work with, sometimes that concept that the website could really be a workhorse, for your business, is a new concept for them. So I would suggest, shop around, see what's new, see what's out there, and start to think about how the different marketing elements that you need can actually, almost help run your business for you.
This might be a little off topic, but I think it's worth mentioning. Do you have access to the back end of your website? A lot of times people had a website built 5 years ago and have done nothing with it since, and then they realize they need to do something, and the person that did it is gone, like Jen said, and they can't access the back end of their website, and now they have a serious problem.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, you talked about security before. If you have a credible hosting plan, it's going to have at least daily backups and go back for at least the last 30 days. But if you never log into your website, or nobody ever logs into your website, and all of a sudden it's, day 31 or day 32, and your website's hacked or it breaks, you may not be able to restore that even from the backups that you have. So I think it's important for most people to realize, most website hosting plans are only going to carry your backups, for the last 30 days. And if you had a problem because you didn't go to your website and it's more than 30 days old, you may be SOL. Jen, I like what you said about, the 24/7 salesperson. I also think more than ever in this day and age, it's not only your salesperson, it's the front door to your business. And we're seeing more and more people starting their journey first by going to a website before they ever talk to a human, before they ever go to a store, across the board, across industries. And so it's literally the front door of your business. It's the way that it's the first impression that many people are going to get when they really, they may hear your name from a referral, but their first impression of your business is when they land on your website. So I think you've got to really think about that and pay attention to that.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, actually, because this day and age, I think COVID has accelerated it. But you have a younger demographic now that is buying things, and they are very comfortable with technology. They would rather go to a website than pick up the phone and call someone. And that's just how younger people are. I mean, I have nieces and nephews, and they almost have to stop and think how to dial a phone. They can text, they can go look at a website, but pick up a phone and call somebody? How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, if you press a button on a website, then it calls for you, right?
Yeah, if you're on the phone and you have that click to call button, but
Yeah.
then you have to actually push the button to initiate the call.
Yeah. Well, and I think in this day and age, for many businesses, maybe even most businesses, your website should be text enabled, because that is the number one way that people are communicating right now, and it is the best guarantee of a way you're going to be able to start and continue a conversation. And but you want to do it in a way that's compliant with the text messaging laws and regulations that are out there. And so making sure that your website is text enabled, the phone number on your website, some people may want to text it, because we're in a world where many people, that's their first go-to, is when they're communicating, they want to send a text. Well, if they're sending a text to your phone number on your website and your website's not text enabled, that phone number isn't, you've just lost that opportunity. You don't want to lose opportunities unnecessarily. So, that's a sign to me. That's one of the first things I look at is there some easy, convenient way to start a dialogue and a conversation with somebody that's not filling out a form and it's not placing a phone call? Because I'm not necessarily ready to have a conversation, because I don't want to be sold to. And there's a good likelihood that when I get on the phone with somebody, they're going to try to sell me something that I'm not ready for. But if I can start a conversation where I have the ability to opt out quickly and say, you know what, I'm not interested. Thanks for your time. Most people are more comfortable doing that, through a chat bot or even a text message. So I think that's become a really big signal to me that a website is stale when it doesn't have one of those features.
And I do think this is one of those things that might be kind of obvious to us folks, but it won't matter how much you refresh your site if the other areas where your audience is already living are equally stale. Because what I see many times is, well, I've got a refresh website, or I've got even some content that's going there. Well, that's great. You're basically like Tom Hanks on an island, and nobody knows, like, unless somebody comes by, they ain't going to ever see what's new. So, like, you have to also have the very same mindset of refreshing your social media on a regular basis. So, yes, it's imperative that you keep your blog updated. But you're going to need to keep that Facebook updated, and that LinkedIn updated, and that e-newsletter updated. Because if all of these things don't work together as one ecosystem, none of it's all going to fall apart. And it's just going to be like, okay, well, what? I mean, I had a guy, he came back after years and years and years, and he's like, nobody came to my website. And I'm like, did you ever do an e-newsletter? No. Have you ever done any social media? No. Okay, they're not going to find it by magic. Like,
is it SEO optimized?
Yeah.
Is it SEO optimized? All of these things.
Not if you build it, they will come. I mean, that's.
Yeah. So again, obvious to folks in marketing, but not as obvious, believe it or not, I think sometimes to people out there in the world, where they think, well, it's all built and it looks awesome. I guess we can turn it on and let it rain. Like, no, keep that other stuff going.
Yeah, two. If I could add two pieces of advice from my perspective too, where companies go wrong with like investing in their website. One is watch out for custom platforms. So they're called CMSs, content management systems. Watch out for that. Don't do those, because just as Jen was saying, like, if the company vaporizes, you're sunk. You're starting from square one. And then the second thing I would add, and this is it actually coincides with what I just said. When we build websites, we actually build them and maybe you guys do as well, but we actually build them in such a way that refreshing the look and the feel, like the skinning of the website, is actually very easy for us, so that when the customer is ready in a year or two, if that business wants to refresh the look, and obviously the content can be done as well, but even just giving it a fresh look is so much cheaper, because we've built it with that mindset that we're building something for the future, not just for today. So, those are good questions to ask an agency, a developer. How do you do that? What are you creating for me is for the future?
Well, and yeah, I mean, that's great, Ian. I mean, a couple of easy things that you can pull onto your homepage, which is the page that the majority of people are going to hit, is, you can pull in your reviews. There are review management systems that will give you code snippets that you can add to pull in your reviews. Well, guess what? If your last review was 2 years ago and you're pulling that onto your website, that doesn't look very good. So that's stale. And also, you can pull on we've talked about blogs, but you can also pull your blogs onto your homepage, so that if you are regularly posting new content, and by blog, it could be a portfolio. If you're a home remodeling contractor, it doesn't have to be a written blog post. It could be your latest project, and it could just, be pulling in content. It could be pulling in an Instagram feed, of the latest work. Anything that just shows that you're actively engaged in doing business, and pulling that onto your site is a good thing, I think.
Well, unless anybody has anything else to add, let's wrap up. I think this is a good spot. And I think what we've tried to reinforce as a group here is, your website is the only real estate that you truly own online, and it can be the hub of all of your digital marketing. So don't let it get stale. Keep it fresh and gooey. I hope you've heard something today that will help you better market your business. Thanks to our panelists for sharing their expertise and insights. If you like this podcast, please share it with other businesses that could benefit from it, and have a wonderful day.